Hello. Listening to what has been going on, I have prepared notes, but I probably will not stick to them very closely. I have some other things. I've been asked a lot of questions, so I'm going to try to answer some of those in this too. But I'm going to tie together political correctness and Sharia and something in Islam called taqiyya and our Constitution, along with what you as an individual and what I as an individual have been working to do on a daily basis to make people aware of what's happening. So let me start with something that may seem a little off the wall. How many of you have been told or have heard that men and women are all the same? How many of you have heard that men and women are all the same? We have to treat them the same, right? How many of you believe it? I used to tell my students in class, I used to ask my students in class, because this would come up occasionally, well, men and women are the same. And I would say, how many of you believe that? And not one student, these are university students, not one student would raise their hand. And I would say, then why do you propose this? Why do you talk about it? Well, you can't talk about anything else. You can't talk about it any other way. It's not politically correct to talk about it any other way. So what we're dealing with here are perpetrated lies created, and you are forced to pretend that they're truth. Basically, that's what political correctness is. You are forced to believe, or to try to believe, that you are being told the truth. And you are forced to play into it. We just heard people are silent because they're afraid to be not politically correct. Well, ever since the ancient Greeks, our culture, Western culture, has been about truth, has been about searching for truth, finding the truth, and taking pride in perpetrating the truth. So part of what I'm going to talk about today is what happens today when we in the West tell the truth. After 9/11, I was obliged, if you look at my resume, I have focused mainly through all of my degrees on the relationship between religion and culture. So after 9/11, I felt obliged, frankly, to make an effort to get to as much of an audience as I could find to talk about what was Islam, because we kept hearing things about, well, why do they hate us? What's wrong? They come here and live for 7, 9 years, and they still hate us? How can that possibly be? So I put together all sorts of sort of video PowerPoints and went around and did talks to everybody. And one of the talks I did over in Rochester at one point made the front page of Foster's Daily Democrat. And the school where I was working, I got an immediate response from the president of the school that I was a fearmonger and a bigot. And the interesting thing about that presentation was that the presentation was almost entirely given in the words of Islam. So every time I made a point about something, I read, handed out, gave the words of Islam. Well, about 6 months later, I was removed as chairman of the history department. And they decided they needed new blood in the history department. And about a year later, when it came time to sign a contract, I was told that they were abolishing the history department. This is a liberal arts division of the school. They were abolishing the history department. And they kept a straight face as I kept saying, let me get this straight, you're abolishing the history department. Oh yes, we've decided that's how they could get rid of somebody who basically had tenure in the history department, was to abolish the department. So and it's a private school, so I had no real recourses as far as law was concerned, because they have the right to do whatever they want when it comes to hiring and firing. But that was my letter, explained that it was abolishing the history department. So I spoke the truth. And not only did I speak the truth, I spoke the truth in the words of Islam. I spoke Islamic truth in the words of Islam. But it was not politically correct. It was not truth under political correctness. And what I want all of you to understand from Islam and from Sharia, and it hasn't been talked about here, I don't believe, at this point, is taqiyya. Taqiyya is a tenet of Islam that says that a Muslim can make up whatever they want to make up. They can tell whatever lies they want to anybody who is not with them. So even to another Muslim, if you are not with them, you can lie and make up whatever. I tried to talk to young girls who were becoming enamored of young Muslims here in New Hampshire and dating them, because I have three very good friends, women who have been married to, at one time or another, Muslim men. They met and married them in America. They went to Iran, Pakistan, and United Arab Emirates with them after children were born, and were treated to full Islamic female repression. After being married to someone who they believed during their married life, and one of them was married 10 years before that happened. So the lie was perpetrated for 10 years before the real motivation came through. So when Frank, for instance, talks about there are mosques that he believes do not want to live under Sharia law, perhaps people there don't want to live under Sharia law. I have had living at my house a young Turkish man who was brought up like many of, I'll say, Catholics in this country who have never read the Bible. He had never read the Koran. He had been brought up under Turkish secular law, had never been to mosque, and probably, and in fact he kept saying, I don't understand what's wrong with you people. I have seen what Sharia law does, and you guys are letting it come in here. He rented a room at our house for about 2 years. And all during this time, he kept saying, why are you electing this man? What is the matter with you? Don't you know what's happening here? I had students in my classroom who you certainly would never have thought that they wanted to live under Sharia law. And yet, when I asked them, frankly, do you think Sharia law would be better for America? They said absolutely, yes. So, and one was a young girl from the United Arab Emirates who dressed Western, who behaved Western, and who ended up going to law school in London. So when we talk to Muslims and we understand, and I want to make it clear that I am not fear-mongering and I am not a bigot. I am concerned with what the rules for Sharia and Islamic doctrine is, and that we understand it and that we know the truth of it. That we are able to believe what we are being told on a regular basis. And for all of you to understand that there is a doctrine called taqiyya that says you may lie as much as you want to non-Muslims to get whatever it is you want, specifically jihad. So you are not under any rule of truth. Now, our Constitution is the antithesis of this. We live in this country, and from the Greeks on, under, if you want to call it, a rule of truth. We desperately want to believe that the people that we are talking to are telling us the truth. And we'll say, look me in the eye. Well, Muslims are very good at looking you in the eye and telling you whatever it is you need to hear. It's part of who they are. So, I am not telling you, and I'm not saying to go out and immediately say to every Muslim you know, you're a liar. Because I believe with Frank that there are secular Muslims. I lived with one for 2 years who has no interest in living under Sharia, and in fact didn't really practice at all. And there are plenty of people in this country. I happen to be a convert to Catholicism, but there are plenty of Catholics in this country who haven't been in church in ages and have never read the Bible and still understand the Constitution. So when it comes to telling the truth and it being accepted, we have two things that I want you to take away from this talk. One is that Taqiyya, Sharia, Islam is built around the ability to not tell the truth and have people believe it is the truth. So is political correctness. Political correctness has developed the same attitude. They will tell you whatever they want you to believe is truth, except that political correctness goes so far as to be so out in the ether somewhere that it's hard to believe, period. But they insist that you believe it is truth and that you act on it as truth. So when our founding fathers signed the Declaration of Independence and signed away their lives and fortunes and sacred honor, by the way, none of those signers of the Declaration of Independence who signed away their lives, fortunes, and sacred honor ever reneged on that. They believed that was the truth and what they were expounding. They believed the Constitution allows for the truth. Political correctness and Taqiyya are directly in opposition to our Constitution. So when I spoke the truth after 9/11 and ended up on the street, so to speak, my first answer was to found a private high school that spoke the truth, and we actually talked about our job in that private high school was to search for the truth. We expounded many of the things that we've been talked about here in the high school. And I have a book coming out besides Make Up Your Own Damn Mind. It's called Who Promised You a Rose Garden? And it is about the founding of the school. It will be out in a couple of weeks. So, and it is about why family, truth, search for truth is important. Out front, I have made some copies of pertinent sections of Sharia law from the Reliance of the Traveler, which is the translated Sharia law, translated into English Sharia law, that is used and is sanctioned by Islam. There are some copies out there. There's also my card there. If you want a copy of it, I'll be glad to email it to you. You can send me from my card. You can send it to my email. But two things to take away. You are living a little bit under Taqiyya with political correctness here. And remember, what you can do is to tell the truth. And to say it, as some of our speakers have said, to say it loudly and to say it often. And to make sure that when someone gives you a politically correct, men and women are all the same, global warming is our greatest enemy, you stand them down on it. You stand up for it. That's the only way we're going to back down political correctness, if more and more people simply don't pay attention to it. Thank you very much, and I'll be glad to take questions.